As the situation in Afghanistan deteriorates, President Biden defends his decision to withdraw US troops from Afghanistan, saying that it's no longer in the national interest to have a presence there.
I will not repeat the mistakes we've made in the past. The mistake of staying and fighting indefinitely in a conflict that is not in the national interest of the United States.
Rescue efforts are intensifying to find survivors of the earthquake in Haiti before a tropical storm hits in just a few hours' time. At least 1,300 people are now known to have died.
The Taliban seizes power in Afghanistan Sunday, bringing to a close the United States' 20-year combat mission in America's longest war. 7 people are dead at the Kabul airport as thousands of Afghans rush to the site attempting to leave the country, while Western nations conduct evacuations. In Haiti, officials raise the death toll from Saturday's 7.2 magnitude earthquake to at least 1,297. And in Malaysia, Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin resigns after months of coalition infighting and rising public anger over a worsening coronavirus outbreak.
My national security team and I have been closely monitoring the situation on the ground in Afghanistan and moving quickly to execute the plans we had put in place to respond to every constituency, including and contingency, including the rapid collapse we're seeing now. Our only vital national interest in Afghanistan remains today what it has always been: preventing a terrorist attack on America's homeland. I've argued for many years that our mission should be narrowly focused on counterterrorism, not counterinsurgency or nation building. I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. I always promised the American people that I would be straight with you. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country. The Afghan military collapsed, sometime without trying to fight. If anything, the developments of the past week reinforced that ending U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan now was the right decision. American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves. As we carry out this departure, we have made it clear to the Taliban, if they attack our personnel or disrupt our operation, the U.S. presence will be swift and the response will be swift and forceful. We will defend our people with devastating force if necessary. Our current military mission will be short in time, limited in scope, and focused in its objectives. Get our people and our allies as safely as quickly as possible. And once we have completed this mission, we will conclude our military withdrawal. We will end America's longest war after 20 long years of bloodshed. I am President of the United States of America, and the buck stops with me. I'm deeply saddened by the facts we now face, but I do not regret my decision to end America's warfighting in Afghanistan and maintain a laser focus on our counterterrorism missions there and other parts of the world.
We are going to move on to some questions from viewers, Dr. Jen. First one, is it possible that we would need to receive more than one booster shot in a year?
Well, this is a loaded question because I assume the question is referring to the COVID-19 vaccine because, of course, yes, it's possible you could need multiple boosters for other vaccines, you know, the big umbrella of them. But this pandemic has shown us that we have to say anything is possible. We're still collecting data. One situation in which this could be imaginably, necessary is if we had a new variant and all of a sudden we needed an additional booster just for that variant suddenly in a short period of time. Is that possible? Yes, but it's really not likely. And Right now, the available data doesn't suggest that we would need a booster every single year. We might get a little more time in between those booster shots, but we're still learning.
All right, well, I'm going to be learning how to pronounce something in this next question that I'm going to ask you to help me with.
Okay.
With the pregnancy of my first child almost 8 years ago, I developed
Diastasis recti.
Thank you. Are there any safe exercises I can do to develop my ab muscles
So let's
back?
talk about anatomy. This is literally an opening. That's what diastasis means in the longitudinal ab muscles. That can occur to some women even with their first pregnancy. It certainly can occur with more likelihood in women who have had twins, when those abdominal muscles get stretched and separated, and sometimes they don't go back together. So in some cases, they would require surgery. In some cases, it might not be problematic, but you worry about a hernia, and it can be problematic. So I'm going to demonstrate quickly. The exercise I give, I know this is, my director's going, what?
Okay.
I tell women to do kind of a reverse sit-up or a crunch. So you're hunched over, and you just do some suck your belly button to the back of your spine, and that is a great way without pressure with a sit-up movement that you can get those muscles back into shape. And guess what? Men can do those too. You don't have to have a uterus to do that ab exercise.
I love it. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Jen. Really all in on that. And you can submit your questions to Dr. Jen on her Instagram at Dr. J. Ashton.
We start with Japan, where the government has decided to expand and extend the coronavirus state of emergency. Tokyo and 5 other prefectures are currently under the state of emergency through the end of the month. Officials plan to add 7 more prefectures. It'll take effect on Friday. Quasi-emergency intensive measures will cover 16 prefectures across the country. All the measures will be extended to September 12th. Officials in the affected areas are to urge restaurants and bars to stop serving alcohol and impose stricter measures at shopping malls and events. Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide plans to finalize the decision after consulting experts on Tuesday. Health authorities across the country confirmed nearly 15,000 new COVID-19 cases on Monday. Some prefectures logged their highest daily tallies since the pandemic began. The pandemic has forced the organizers of the Tokyo Paralympics to rethink their summer games, kicking off in just a week. They've decided to hold the games with no spectators except students.
The organizers decided that all events will be held under the strict measure of no spectators.
The games will be held in Tokyo and 3 other prefectures. All events will be held under emergency measures. Organizers say they want future generations to experience the events, so they will allow students at venues if they get permission from their schools and parents. The games run from August 24th to September 5th. Tokyo police have arrested a Paralympian from Georgia who they say has admitted to assaulting a security guard at a hotel. Investigators believe he was drunk at the time. Police say Zviad Gogochuri shoved the guard last Thursday. The victim suffered a broken rib from the incident. The 34-year-old judoka has a visual impairment and won a gold medal at the 2016 Rio Games. Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has stepped down amid growing public discontent with his handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
I submitted my resignation to the king since I'd lost majority support in Parliament.
Muhyiddin tendered his resignation on Monday and told the king that his entire cabinet was stepping down with him. The king accepted and named him caretaker prime minister until a new leader can take up the post. Muhyiddin was appointed as prime minister by the king after the resignation of his predecessor, Mahathir Mohamad, in February last year. But his administration faced a backlash as it was launched without an election. The country has been under a coronavirus lockdown since June to combat a renewed rise in infection numbers. The government has imposed harsh restrictions on economic activity and people's movements. But the measures have not stopped the virus from spreading, with the daily tally of new cases at around 20,000 since the beginning of this month. Turning to the latest news from Afghanistan, where Taliban forces have released a video declaring victory in their war against the government. The militants have reached Kabul and President Ashraf Ghani has fled the capital. Ghani's administration has effectively lost control. Footage from Al Jazeera shows dozens of armed Taliban fighters taking control of the presidential palace and occupying administration offices in Kabul. Taliban forces advanced on Kabul on Sunday as government security forces retreated from parts of the capital. President Ghani posted on social media that he left his country to avoid bloodshed. He also wrote that Taliban forces have won and are now responsible for the honor, property, and self-preservation of their country's people. Ghani's interior minister says preparations are underway for a peaceful transfer of power to a transitional government. Since the U.S. announced its complete withdrawal by the end of this month, the Taliban have taken control of nearly all of Afghanistan, signaling the end of a 20-year effort by Western countries to build up Afghan security forces. There are concerns about further deterioration of security on the streets in central Kabul, including a series of explosions of planted bombs. A local journalist has told NHK that residents are worried about their safety.
The people with the name of Taliban knocking the doors of the houses and asking from their jobs. The big concern for the people is the security.
He added that people believe the country is now without a government and that their security depends on the stance of the Taliban. Pressure has been mounting in Hong Kong against major organizers of pro-democracy movements, forcing many of them to disband. And now a pro-democracy group that organized a massive protest in Hong Kong in 2019 says it's shut down. More than 1 million people are said to have taken part in the rally. In a statement issued on Sunday, Civil Human Rights Front, or CHRF, said, "Our member groups were suppressed and civil society is facing unprecedented challenges." CHRF was established in 2002, joined by pro-democracy labor unions and other organizations. A rally in June 2019 was the first in a series of major protests in Hong Kong. The group has upheld as its principle the expression of civic opinions through legal demonstrations. But senior CHRF members have been arrested in connection with protest movements and elections since China's national security law for Hong Kong took effect in 2020. Now an update on the torrential rains here in Japan. More heavy downpours are expected in the southwestern region of Kyushu. This comes as a lingering rain front has already brought record amounts of rainfall to the area. The meteorological agency is calling on people to be on their guard, saying it may issue its highest alert again. The front brought intense rain to much of eastern and western Japan intermittently from Wednesday through Monday. At some locations, the precipitation recorded during the period was more than 3 times the average rainfall for all of August. Several rivers burst their banks while mudslides engulfed some areas. 6 people have been confirmed dead. 4 people are missing. 8 people have been injured. More than 4,000 homes and other buildings have been damaged or flooded, mostly in Kyushu. Mudslide alerts remain in place as another set of rain clouds moves over the region. Weather officials say the stationary front is expected to linger around Japan through Friday, bringing more rain to many places across the country. The officials are warning of more mudslides, overflowing rivers, and inundation of low-lying areas. Those were the main stories for this hour.